we as Hindu women live in a world that is dominated by men, which is something women of all faiths deal with. But then we also live in a world that is dominated by Western or Abrahamic paradigms. So, I would love to hear from both of you how you navigate these issues given and stay true to your background and faith. So, Madhuji, if you would let us know.
Thank you, Pushpita, for this very warm introduction. And I look forward to talking to both of you about my experiences with women's rights issues in India. Know that one of my most celebrated as well as the most controversial essays was titled Why I Do Not Call Myself a Feminist. Um, it's not because I have something in particular against women's rights issues, far from it, even though I have devoted all my life to working to strengthen women's rights as well as rights of all other vulnerable groups in our society. But I'm averse to all isms and ideologies, especially those that emanate from the West. And the reason is simply this, that the foundational values and mindset informing ideologies emanating from the West with its Abrahamic mindset is intolerance, and a very virulent form of intolerance and desire to vanquish through brute force and destroy all pre Christian, pre Islamic cultures and faith traditions in order to subjugate and force them to be loyal, wagging tails of Christianity or Islam. Both are filled with prejudice and hatred for all humanity, which does not fall into the conversion trap. The choice offered to us kafirs or infidels is death or conversion. And they're very racist to the core. You living in North America would know that non-white Christians are never at par. Non-Arab, non-Turks are never at par, even if they convert. Their commandment-giving God is actually the commandment-giving God of the Christians is no different from Allah. Both are jealous, intolerant, and threaten hideous forms of punishments to those who choose to live their life their own way instead of converting and falling in line. The modern day isms and ideologies emanating from the West are loaded with the same biases. You are treated as a lower species if you don't fall in line with, refuse to identify yourself as a leftist, socialist, postmodernist. I mean, every day or every few months, there's a new fashion and you must fall in line. Just as often as they change their clothing fashion and hairstyle fashion, so also these ideologies come and then try to prove everybody else is to be not just wrong, but as though subhuman species, less intelligent, less cerebral than the others, not awakened enough. And as far as feminism is concerned, like socialism, it's not just imported ideologies, but it is also nurtured by foreign funding agencies with all manners of economic and career advancement and incentives offered to you if you convert. You will be rewarded if you convert, as with rice bag Christians, but you will be hounded and marginalized if you dare stand your own ground. Now, I really find such ideologies which try to box your thinking into a set pattern, issue you dictates of what's right way of looking at things and what's wrong, what's not acceptable. It is actually no different from the way colonial missionaries used to behave with regard to, the heathens that they came to convert. And feminism, especially for third world women or women from countries like India, becomes a very lucrative career option. They offer you 5-star globe trotting, provide crores to set up well-heeled NGOs. They offer you fellowships in foreign universities, cushy jobs in elite research centers, also media houses, bureaucracy, and even judiciary today. I mean, these are all become their captive power citadels. Now, I really believe that, firstly, all ideologies in the Hindu worldview, all ideas are time specific. The greatest of ideas are time specific, culture specific, and region specific. I'm sure you know that our Shastras are very different from the sacred texts of Abrahamic faiths. They are not commandment giving texts.
Yes.
And they're all emphatic. In fact, all Shastrakars, all Smritikars are emphatic that one shoe fits all mindset makes mincemeat out of minds, heads, and hearts. And therefore, you have to, keeping certain basic dharmic values in view. And mind you, I don't think Hindu faith traditions can be called religion. Uh, the Abrahamic religions are different, and the term we better use for ourselves is not religion, because that brings with it a whole baggage, which slots you in a in. Also, it creates a false equivalence, and we should really avoid it. Now, since we are not used to commandment giving texts, neither the Vedas nor the great epics, the Mahabharata or the Ramayana, nor the Shastras, nor the Smritis, none of them issue commandments which must be obeyed. There's no threat that if you don't do this, you shall be punished, you shall go to hell, rot in hell, fire forever, or be boycotted socially. And there's such a diverse variety of ways of living and being that's available to us, that what feminism offers in contrast is so pitiful. All that it offers women is very mechanical notion of equality. 50%ism is the maximum it can hope to give in a very mechanical, imbecile manner. That's not how you can live life. You wash 50% of the dishes, and I do 50% of the cleaning and cooking. I mean, this kind of, I'm making it light, but basically everywhere you're forever looking at what pie of the cake do I have? And do I have a 50% pie or not? That's, to me, a very mechanical way of ensuring equality. And equality actually becomes a very poor thing when you compare to what Hindu dharmic worldview gives to women. Firstly, I'm not Adam's faltu haddi. I'm not Adam's spare rib. Nor am I a temptress. Nor am I a creature who ensured the fall of mankind and therefore must carry that horrible load and gift on my shoulders. As you mentioned right at the outset, that an essential tenet of Hinduism, pre-Vedic, Vedic, and post-Vedic, is that Shakti, the feminine energy, is believed to represent the primeval creative principle underlying the cosmos. She is the energizing force of all divinity, of every being and every sentient as well as non-sentient being. And Shakti is known by the generic name Devi, derived from the Sanskrit word Dev, which means to shine. The feminine has such positive connotations. Our great epics, the Vedas, and the Puranic literature give a whole array of names and attributes to the universal feminine power, which is worshipped, as you well know, in the form of diverse Devis. Sri Lakshmi is celebrated as the goddess of wealth and prosperity. But Sri Lakshmi is not just a distant heavenly figure. There's no sharp divide between the human and the divine. So a loved daughter-in-law will invariably be referred to, or the coming of a daughter-in-law, the coming of Lakshmi. And all the rituals associated with coming of a daughter-in-law are as though to welcome Lakshmi incarnate, Saraswati, the presiding deity of arts and knowledge. And it's very common for parents to refer to a talented daughter or a talented wife, husband referring to his talented wife as Saraswati incarnate. A Subbalakshmi would be called Saraswati ka vaas hai inke kant mein. And even ordinary women, every mohalla, every city, every village in India would have many mini Lakshmis, many Saraswatis, many who are revered in their own way. And Durga, as you well know, is the vanquisher of evil. And earth itself is worshipped as goddess Prithvi, and hence Bharat Bhumi, the landmass that constitute India, has come to be worshipped as Ma Bharati. So we tend to infuse entire nature with sense of the sacred. And even Durga, again, you don't have to be just sitting in temples. Any woman who displays outstanding courage, is fearless, is capable of vanquishing wrongdoers, is invariably referred to as Durga incarnate. And believe you me, I learned to play Durga even before I became a Durga devotee, because as a child, anytime anybody tried to mess with me, I was a very peaceful child. But my mother would invariably warn people who ever tried to mess with me, uska Durga roop mat jaga, because
Yes.
then you've had it.
Yeah.
And I learned, therefore, very early on to assume that Durga roop as and when required. But mind you, Durga is not just about being militant, vanquishing. Once she has done the needful with regard to vanquishing evil and re-establishing dharma, she's a benign, nurturing mother. And so this business of being forever an angry, militant woman, having that monolithic personality, you don't need to have. You can be benign mother figure like Shiv ki Parvati, Ma Sita. You could be a besotted lover like Radha, who's worshipped in her own right for her bhakti. And you can be Durga, you can be Saraswati. And mind you, all these at different times, different situations will bring out these different aspects of you. So we've not had to be boxed in that manner. And mind you, whatever I owe to myself, I think is thanks to a very desi liberalism of my parents, as opposed to the very intolerant Stalinist variety of liberalism that feminists and socialists and leftists claim to uphold. Their liberalism chokes you because my way or highway. You're not aware enough, you're not a full woman, you're not, if you don't wear that label. And
Right.
I've invariably found this, my last sentence before I hand over to Preeti, that wearing that label doesn't even ensure that you're pro-women. I find many feminists, at least in India, virulently woman-hating. And their idea of feminism is me, mine. Give it to me, and then you're doing right by women. If I don't get what I insist on getting, right or wrong, then you're anti-women. So to me, it's far more important to nurture women, to stand by them, but not at the cost of treating men as enemies, but learning to coexist with dignity.